Welcome everybody. This is Comics in a Halfshell. Is it Dave Wachter or
Wachter?
Wachter. Okay,
Yeah.
I was curious because I could not find the correct pronunciation anywhere.
Yeah, that's it.
And Gavin Smith and Cory Smith. I'm assuming no relation, or is it a relation?
Oh no, we're brothers.
Yeah.
No, we don't talk about it much.
Oh, okay.
We went to the same school, we worked on the same books.
A lot of odd connections, but yeah, no relation.
Yeah, no relation.
So, being a kid in the 90s, my first exposure to the Turtles was the late 80s movies, the live action movies, and the cartoon. What was your guys' first experience with the Ninja Turtles?
I think it was the cartoon, but it might have also been. It's hazy because it might have also been the Archie comic series. It was based on the cartoon. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that stuff. Yeah, that. I think that might have been my introduction. There's a cover. Raphael, Raphael was back against the wall, and I think he was wearing his trench coat, and on the other side was or maybe the Gecko was wearing a trench coat. See, it's all hazy. Yeah, it might have been one of those.
Yeah, the cartoon. It had to be the
I think
80s cartoon.
Yeah, I think
First
cartoon was for me, but also there see, this just unlocked a memory with Archie, because I would go to like a Hooks or a drugstore that was local and like see the Archie comics, and I was always reading those. Also, the 1990 movie, I went with my dad and brother to see that in theater, so I remember that very vividly.
The arcade game. You guys remember the arcade game?
I love that
Oh
arcade
my
game.
goodness.
Yeah.
I had one at the YMCA. I went to, and,
That you were living at for a while.
pretty much. Free shower, man.
Hey, that's
Listen.
the best, man.
2022 was a tough year, man.
So, is there any way that you guys try to visually differentiate between the Turtles, given that they pretty much look exactly the same, except for their weapons and the colors that they wear?
Yes.
Yes.
How do you go about managing that besides the weapons?
I
and
mean,
colors?
for me personally, what I did, Raphael was shorter and stockier. He's more of he's the Wolverine of the group.
Right,
So
yeah.
he's big and bulky.
He's the tallest.
What's that?
Donnie's the tallest.
Donnie's tall, kind of skinny, and a little nerdy. The other two are pretty much the same except in posture. So
Right.
Leonardo's
He is
going to be standing up
heroic.
straight and being heroic. Mikey's going to be goofing off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's a big thing. It's just and their facial expressions. Mikey's always happy. Leo's always stalwart. Donnie's always curious. Raph is always angry.
Yeah.
I feel like the differentiation between them, did that all kind of start with the 2012 animated series? Like, was that the first?
I think
because
so. The 2003
bodies,
was
yeah.
didn't do
Yeah.
anything different.
yeah, the 2003
Yeah.
ones were very much similar, and obviously in the cartoon and also in the
Figures
Mirage
and stuff.
comics and everything. But yeah, the 2012 they kind of had different proportions, and it seems like every iteration since then has sort of followed that thing.
Yeah.
Right.
You're right.
Yeah, same thing. Like Raph's short and stocky, Donnie like tall and lanky and sort of like awkward, and then I always thought of Mikey as like sort of soft, like very like almost like a bubble, like given that doesn't make sense, but in contrast to Leo, who was more like angular.
It's like more heroic, like classic superhero.
Yeah.
I think it was one of those things where like I had an idea of how I thought the Turtles should be drawn, and then I think getting notes from Nickelodeon, it's very quickly learn on the job. So like Nickelodeon's like, well, this is this and this, and then like, we talked about like the size differences and heights and stuff like that, and it's one of those things where like I did the mugshot cover and I put like in the original art the height and weight of Raphael, and it was one of those things they're like, take that off, because it was like one of these things they wanted to keep secret, but it's like an unspoken rule that we have to follow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. So, are there any moments where you guys have been drawing them and like actually like forget which one you're drawing, like with a close-up shot or something, maybe?
I don't think so. I mean, I've been such a massive fan of it for so long that like it's one of the few jobs in comics that like really, I mean, it's all work, but there's I love doing that stuff, and drawing them
Right.
so much that like I felt such a connection to it that like no, I was always like really totally tuned in. Whereas like if I'm drawing like superhero stuff, I have to constantly reference costume details, like every single panel. But the Turtles, yeah, it always stuck with me.
It felt very similar experience where like it felt very like it is hard work, but it felt natural.
Yeah,
it
yeah,
felt
exactly.
very instinctual. Like and I was just coming off of doing Star Trek for a year, where everything was so rigid with likenesses and the likenesses of ships and stuff that like it felt like drawing again because it was just a lot of
Relentless.
yeah.
No, that's awesome. It's so what's the creative process like with Turtles as opposed to some of the other projects you guys have worked on? Is it more of like a free form? Do you have a lot more creative freedom with Turtles as opposed to like working on a superhero book?
Oh, not really. I don't know.
I think Turtles was more restrictive.
Yeah,
Really?
In a way.
Turtles
yeah.
is pretty. I mean, there was certain leeway, but it's a pretty strict script style. You know, that following the script. There's and the fact that the IDW series is like one big long story that has the same people who were, at least when I was there, it switched over a bit when you were there, but when we were there, it was the same people editing, writing, you know, for the first 100 issues. So there was a style that had been established. There was a way that it had been written that had been established.
There's a feeling of like picking up the torch in a sense.
Yeah.
Where, like, you kinda had to. It was never like official, but like there was, you know, maybe felt like you had to adhere to certain things that were established.
Yeah, I looked at your work and Mateus's work was what I was following when I came in. And so when I first started drawing them, I was just drawing them the way you guys drew them.
And by the time I came in, I'm 140 issues in, so I've got all these guys to look at. So
yeah, it actually took me a while before I noticed. Oh, there was like Andy Kuhn was in there and stuff like that. So oh, people can draw it different ways.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, oh, I could, and that's when I started to evolve them a little bit and evolve my style into it and bring a little bit more of me into it. But when I was first doing it, I was just trying to fit what had already been established, and then later I gave them beaks. I don't know. You know, that's really about it. And as I was like, oh, who's going to pick up the ball and run with this? I was like, and as soon as I'm off the book, it's like no more beaks. It's like, oh, all right, I guess nobody else likes to draw beaks. I know, like, guys, turtles have beaks, right?
Yeah.
Like in real life.
they
So
also
let's put
have
some
more
beaks.
than 2 fingers.
I know, but yeah, I forget what. Oh, so creative freedom on it. But, as compared to like superhero books, yeah, it seems like with a lot of the superhero books I've been doing have been a lot of like mini series and stuff like that. So while there are years and years and years of continuity, when you come on into this mini series with this writer who is just starting at the same time as you are on like 4 or 5 issues, you actually have a little bit of freedom to like establish the tone yourself as opposed to the tone already being established. And there's also the difference between working on a licensed property, where you're not only beholden to the editors at IDW, say, but you're also beholden to people at Nickelodeon taking a look at it and having to approve things. As well.
Gotcha.
So,
Extra layer.
yeah.
And also the IDW series in particular, like, just lost my train of thought. The scripting style that you touched on, I don't know what it is about the Turtles that inspires writers to like pack the pages with panels, but it seems to be pretty consistent.
That's
So
been consistent. I've got the new writer, so
it's like when
who's actually old now, but
oh yeah, but like I'm always looking for ways to like put my own spin on a script, or like dropping panels out or combining panels or just trying to do something different. And it was
Fewer panels, basically. Is what
basically
you're saying.
that's essentially what it boils down to. And it was really hard to do that on Turtles because it was so packed. There's not just a ton of panels, but a ton of action within those panels.
Right.
And not a lot of wiggle room, So that was kind of like
Yeah, as an artist, when you have an action scene, you want there to be few panels, kind of like you want to be able to make big, bold,
money shots.
Yeah, huge shots of the action and stuff like that. And they would give you like 8 panels, and each panel had like at least 3 to 8 characters in it, all of which had like a line of dialogue that you realize that you have to fit in there, and you have to put the characters in the correct order that the dialogue is in,
Oh my
because you
goodness.
can't have the word balloons crossing those tails, So you got to make sure when you're drawing it, you're like, okay, so Raph talked first in this one, and then Leo talked, and then Master Splinter talked, but then in the next panel, Master Splinter went first, and then Leo went, So it became a lot of like, how do I do this now and make it and not drive myself completely insane.
Okay.
Which I don't know. I think we may have already done that.
So is there like an added sense of pressure when you're working on the Turtles because they are so like popular mainstream wise, and their fan base is probably one of the most loyal in comics?
Well, I think there's something about the Turtles that's so flexible. Like, I mean, because we were talking earlier, like there's been so many different iterations.
Right.
And I think especially on the IDW series, there have been so many artists, and like I think we all three of us draw drastically different. Differently? I don't know. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, same difference.
But like,
No, that's not a writer.
yeah. That's why they draw me to, or pay me to draw the bunnies, not right. But yeah, like we draw so differently, like, and everyone's been able to kind of put their own unique spin on them. So there's a little, like I said, flexibility there. But I guess there is the responsibility of it being the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and everyone's got their own idea of what Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is to them. You know, sometimes people get mad when you do stuff to the characters that they like so much.
But we're the artists. We usually don't have to deal with it, which is great.
Yeah.
Usually the writer has
I would
to
say the
deal
writer
with it.
takes most of the blame.
The writer
don't they?
takes most of the blame. But I actually have found Ninja Turtles fans to be pretty forgiving. Maybe it's because there have been so many different iterations and styles that have gone over the years. I find them to be pretty forgiving. It's when I moved into doing Marvel books. When you
Ooh, I
start
can
when you
only
start to
imagine.
hear when you were like, oh, this is what people talk about when they say like when they say fandom with a bad tone, you know what I mean? Like you start, because then you start to hear, you know, they all just come out of the woodwork after, especially when you like have to design the new Punisher or something,
Oh,
and then they're
geez,
not,
yeah.
you know. Whereas like Ninja Turtles fans have been overwhelmingly awesome
Yeah.
and positive. Like they're
ones
just
you
they
meet in person.
love it. Like maybe there's a few online,
The
but,
online ones are.
but for the most part,
Can be.
I've
Those
found-
ones don't really exist, though.
Well,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, change the Punisher and see
Yeah,
how
right.
it feels about him then.
All right, fine.
Well, Gavin and I were talking yesterday about like the Turtles fandom and how like everyone who's worked on them, you know, if you touch that universe, like the fandom sort of stays with you. You know,
Yeah.
follows you to whatever you do, which is awesome. You know, it's been years since I worked on Turtles, and at every convention I do, I get like really
drawing
enthusiastic.
Turtles.
I'm drawing turtle
You're drawing
conventions
turtles.
and like talking to people about turtles, and that's awesome. Like
Yeah.
to be such a fan of a thing, you know, and then to be like part of it now is like the best.
Because you're always part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
nice.
I haven't. Yeah, I didn't draw any since issue 100,
Right.
and which is now 40 some issues ago. So, which is like what happened to that time? And it's like, but yeah, every convention I go to, people are talking about my Ninja Turtle work. People are asking for drawings of Ninja Turtles.
Why do you think that is that Turtle fans are so loyal like that? As opposed to like a Superman fan who will, you know, be angry with every other artist and every other writer that works on the book.
I think it's just the franchise resiliency. Just the fact that it seemed like it's
It's got so much going for it. You know, there's so
Yeah,
many
yeah.
like you talked about how the resilience of turtles, and like I've always heard people say that like Batman is a character you can plug into like any story. That like you could do like a crime story or a mystery or
Right.
like, straight up superhero action or some sci-fi, and like turtles fit right into that as well. Like so I think you can. They're just so adaptable, I guess.
yeah.
I think there's also a feeling about Turtles that maybe you don't get with something big at Marvel or DC, where there's the Turtles. A fan of Turtles will feel more like the Turtles are theirs.
It still feels more like an indie book.
Like it's a
almost.
little more indie. It's a little more, you know, it's a little, you know, even though it's not, it's huge. It's huge.
Right.
But I feel like the feeling that you get is of this more of this tighter knit kind of community, that it's a little less like people who are fans of you know, it has the feeling of it not being as worldwide, even though it is
Right.
huge, but it still feels a little more indie underground,
Right.
if that makes any sense. But I don't know.
So, are there any like aspects of the Turtles' personalities that you enjoy incorporating into the artwork more than others?
Usually Mikey stuff for me. Like maybe it's that little brother syndrome in me. Like just like him always kind of like goofing. Like I try to do stuff with like his body language that was just constantly like a little jittery, always talking with his hands. Or
Yeah.
like I had a scene where like the turtles were walking down the street after like, you know, a big fight in an alley or something like that. And they're walking down the street, but Mikey's like on his phone with Siri, the Triceraton, and like he hangs up the phone and just like interrupts a conversation Raph and Leo are having. I have him like basically like elbowing them out of the way, like, listen to me, guys, and like stuff like that. Yeah.
I think. I mean, I like Raphael.
Yeah.
I mean, I just like because I was with I liked, I like that Wolverine, Raphael, that surly, angry heart on the sleeve. Like Raphael,
Yeah.
you know what he's feeling at any moment of the day.
Right.
It's usually negative, but like it's completely honest.
Yeah.
Like he's and there's no
What you see is what you definitely get with.
yeah,
Raphael.
and he can't he's one of those guys who because he's so honest and because he's totally puts it all out there when the world doesn't work that way. That's what's really is causing his frustration because the world is not as honest as he is, and the world is not as true to itself as he is true to itself. So I think he feels that frustration, and I think that's something that I find familiar, or have found familiar throughout my life. Whereas, so I think that's why I like that one. I do like Leo and just doing his like quiet burden. Where he's just
I like doing that
just
too.
throw a shadow over his face and just have him just be like, I'm the one who has to deal with it, and
Yes.
Right.
I'll take it on my back, guys.
I always drew Leo as being like annoyed because like he's the older brother, so like everything any other brother says to him, he's just all right.
Guys, can we get serious?
Yeah. There's always kind of side eyeing, but yeah.
Yeah.
So when I one of the stories I worked on at IDW was the death of Donatello, which we don't know, he didn't actually die, but so like I really grew to love Donatello in that storyline because he like knowingly put himself in harm's way. He knew that Bebop and Rock were going to come for him, and he did that so that the rest of the team could carry out their plan, which was at that time pivotal. And so there was I remember like really putting like a what's the word like a really brave sort of attitude on him, but also like fearful, and I really tried to have him embody that. And then when the turtles get back and see his shell smashed, that's like that last splash page is like a perfect encapsulation of all all the other ones personalities, because Leo is just kind of in disbelief. Raph is raging already, like just already thinking about vengeance, and Mikey's just bawling his eyes out, and I think April's arms or someone's arms, and yeah, that pretty much covered their personalities.
It's great.
So how do you go about trying to put your own spin on these characters without stepping on whatever artist worked on it before you? Because like you said, you all three have very different art styles, but if you go through the IDW series, you don't see that drastic of a change.
Well, like I said, when I started, I was just sort of imitating
right.
what
Yeah, so was I.
because I've done before. Yeah,
It was never like said to me to follow like a house kind of style, but it was like it just kind of felt like it made sense, to have some sort of consistency. Looking back on it now, I would have really gone in a different direction.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel the same way.
I think
I
that
did
was-
try to evolve it, but yeah.
I think I was lucky enough to follow both you guys and whoever else that I was that everyone I saw there were different versions of it being drawn. So like having done like only like I think I did like 3 covers before I started, maybe 4.
so you really probably put your spin on them maybe more than either of us, like with because they're pants and like their costumes kind of changed, like they got a little more like
like tangible. I felt like
Yeah.
And
I never even I didn't even know I was like I didn't even know we were allowed to change the
Right.
costume.
Yeah.
Well,
You know what I'm
So
saying?
like if I had known,
I was like just matching. I was like, okay, this one's got this many pouches, and this guy's got the arm
and
things,
part
and
of
the other
that
guy
was
doesn't.
working with Sophie because Sophie Campbell had been putting them in full geese, and but I still want to draw the Ninja Turtles. I want to draw shells, so I didn't want to cover it up too much. So I kind of compromised and put them in pants, and except for Jenica, I gave her like the full gi because I think that was more established. Or I guess is that something you did? You put her in a gi? Because she was a human, so she was used to wearing clothes anyway.
Yeah, no, I just went with she did have pants.
Yeah.
Because that was but Sophie had done that design already.
Oh, okay. That
Yeah.
makes sense. So, yeah, and I'm following Sophie's design, but I wanted to draw shells. I wanted to draw like the classic, like, 6 panels on their chest, and yeah, seeing how everyone else had like just kind of. I don't think they would have hired me if they didn't want me to draw it like how I drew it, and they saw how I was drawing it before when I had done my 3 or 4 covers that I had done beforehand. So I just went with it.
No, that's awesome. So what's your creative process is like? Because I did a panel yesterday with Simon Bisley, and he said his starts with a shot of absinthe. So I'm just curious, like, do you guys have to kind of like lock yourselves away in a dungeon to kind of do what you're doing, or do you have like music or maybe like Ninja Turtles playing in the background when you're drawing them?
Yeah, from time to time.
Yeah.
I've gone through the old cartoon like for background noise.
Okay.
Yeah, I try to like a lot of podcasts, music. I try not to put in anything visual, anymore because I just gotta get distracted. I can't do it anymore.
I can't listen to anything while I'm doing layouts. Layouts is silence.
Really?
I can do instrumental music for that.
I can't do anything while I'm doing layouts when I'm trying to translate the script into the layout of the page. That first phase of the process. I can't listen to anything else. Then when I move on to pencils, that's when I listen to music or podcasts.
Is that because there's like lyrics going on and you're like?
Just about anything, even like the change in rhythms of a music or something like that can throw me off.
Really?
And I've just gotta like keep in. I just need it to be. It's something about which side of my brain is, because it's a different. You can tell when you're doing different phases. When you're doing layouts, you're going from script to layout, and then taking your layouts and turning into pencils, and then from pencils to inks. You're making different decisions in each time. And you're using like a different section of your brain, and those different sections of your brain, I think, react to whatever else is going to be going on around you. So like listening to spoken word things may work better while you're doing pencils, but when you're doing inks, you sort of want something that's got a rhythm going, so you want music. So but yeah, when layouts are on, it's like nothing. I can't do anything in that.
When I'm doing layouts, I'll put on something familiar, like, because I have a TV above my desk, so it's like out of my eyesight. But I'll put on like the first 9 seasons of The Simpsons, and like, because like I know the jokes by heart. So I'm like, I just like, all right, I got, Bart's about to take his, Jebediah Springfield's head, okay, and Biggins, yeah. I use the word cromulent way too much in real life. By the way,
It's a perfectly cromulent word.
I've never heard it before I moved to Springfield. But something that I can just kind of ignore for layouts and stuff. But I don't know. Yeah, usually I have the TV on, but like, it's something ignorable. But when I'm inking, like, that's like, oh, now it's time to catch up on, what, wrestling or something like that, or like the HBO show that I actually have to pay attention to.
Do you guys find that there's like a rhythm to your workday that like? Some things like do you sort of like order? Because I'll do that all the time. Like there's certain things like layouts. If I've got to do them, they got to be done in the morning when I'm like fresh. And then like a lot of inking I can't do until like later at night for who knows why. But there's like I just sort of follow my
I
instincts.
think so. I mean, the only problem I have with that is usually I'm doing all layouts at one time, and then I'm doing all pencils at one time, and doing all inking, so I can't divide up. But I do notice at different times of days, like inking, I can ink.
It's hard as hell at
I
certain
can ink
times.
at like 2 a.m. It's great, but trying
I
to
love
ink
it.
at 9 a.m. or 8
get it,
a.m.
nightmare.
It's just like I can't get it going. I can't get this going.
Yeah.
The problem is that that's all I'm doing today is inking. That's all I'm doing this
Some days you
week
can't
is
help it.
inking.
There's
So
like-
in the morning you're just like, come on.
Sometimes part of my drawing process is taking like a 45-minute break with my phone and playing like something stupid on it. Like that's part of drawing, which is kind of ridiculous, but it's like you need that like palette cleanser to like get back to it. So like, but like, there's something about waking up in the morning and getting into layouts with a cup of coffee or something like that. That's just like makes it flow easier. If my wife's not up yet, it's amazing. If my wife goes to bed early, I can just ink all night. It's awesome. Yeah.
So we spoke earlier about how awesome the Ninja Turtle fans are. Do you guys have like one memory from a fan interaction at a convention that really, really sticks out?
I mean, there's a few. When you say the one that pops into my mind right now that I can think of was in a C2E2. I just had. There was like a dad and like a little girl, and she sort of plopped down in the aisle and was sitting there and like started drawing something, like sort of like right there from my table. And there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of people at the table and stuff going on, so I didn't really pay attention. But then when after a little bit, like 20 minutes, and like she gets up and they're like, yeah, she wanted to give this to you, and she drawn a little piece of paper, a little drawing of each of the characters, that she had done a ballpoint pen,
cool.
with all of the turtles, and then like the little drawing of Splinter in the middle, and it was on a little like 3-hole punch paper and stuff like that, and the drawings were about that big, interspersed around there. And she was about, I don't know how old she was, she's about this old, how old is that? I don't know. But she's little, like stuff like that's cool because, like you say about the Ninja Turtles fans, you get a lot of dudes like us. You get a lot of like middle-aged dudes, right? Still love the Turtles, right? Totally into it, but it translates still to kids, and because there's still material being made on like the more mass market of cartoons and stuff like that. So there's still kids getting into it. Yeah. So you still have. Whereas some things I work on, and it's just the middle-aged dudes, and like that's all you get. But this one, you still get all the kids coming in, and it's a really like you get with Ninja Turtles fans. It's the whole spectrum. It's there's no gender or age. Like you get everybody in there. Maybe not. Maybe over 65, 70. You're not getting a lot of people, but
I think that was going to be my answer to it. Like, it's just
I'm sorry, I stole your answer.
It's not really. But you touched on it. Like it's just that because it's been around for about 40 years now. Everybody comes into it different because there's been so many iterations, and whether it be the movies. Any movie, including Michael Bay or the Next Mutation show with Venus, or the 87 cartoon, 2003, 2012, Rise, all of it's valid. And then fans of that are like, even if they're fans of Rise and that's their first Turtles, they'll go back and watch it all. And I love hearing like when people come up to me and they tell me how they got into it.
Yeah.
Like almost everybody's different, and it's really cool. And it's just, cool to get to be a part of that. Also cool if they've actually read the books you're working on.
Right.
So, for sure. And they can talk to you about the stories part of it, or catch the Millhouse Wanted Dead or Alive poster I drew.
So I just remembered something after I did the Death of Donatello in 2015 at New York Comic Con. These two guys showed up, one dressed as Bebop and one as Rocksteady, and they had a sledgehammer and it stuffed Donatello with them.
Oh,
I actually found the photo. Against all odds, I found the photo on my phone.
That's great.
So did a little photo shoot right in front of myself. Like that's pretty brutal.
So around that time, after you killed Donatello, there was I don't know if it was before. There was sketch covers of Turtles versus Ghostbusters, like that crossover, and someone brought one to me at a show, and I drew. Ghostbusters busting Donatello's ghost.
Oh yeah, I've never seen that.
Yeah.
That's great.
So, I forgot I killed Splinter off too.
Oh yeah.
I forgot I killed Splinter.
Yeah, put that on your resume.
Yeah.
It didn't even register.
Yeah.
Comics will do that to you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I killed Picard once, but it was a mirror Picard, so no one cared.
How many times has Picard died at this point, though? I mean,
It's me.
That heart of his.
Yeah.
right. I mean, they've replaced that thing at least 20 times.
Yeah.
So, I lost my train of thought there.
We're talking about Ninja Turtles.
No, so is there like made any negative responses you guys have gotten from any of the things that you've done? For instance, killing off Donatello, killing off Splinter. I mean,
Yeah, people were pretty upset with me for a while after that. Like,
how long did it take for that to kind of die down?
A couple years. Like,
Oh,
it went on
really?
for a while. Yeah. It was pretty consistent.
Because he didn't stay gone that long.
No, but I had to just like you guys know I didn't write this. Like, I'm just. I'm on the face of it, I guess, but I didn't decide to do this.
Right.
Oh, but when that keyboard hit, ooh, that's ruthless.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I might have like pushed it as far as it could have gone, as brutal as it could have been.
Did you do the thing like in the Wanted movie where it felt like it?
I think it was very similar to that, yeah. And there were keys flying everywhere.
Yeah. I haven't. All my Ninja Turtle stuff has been pretty. It's been very positive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even Splinter died in mine, and it's just like I didn't hear any. Slash died. I never got any negativity for that. So I can't say.
I do get the
How about you?
why are they in pants?
People were afraid of you, Dave, that's why.
Why are there in pants? Why are there 5 of them? Thinking about starting to charge anytime anyone asks me that.
Why are there
Just
5 of them? You must get that
all the time, and it's his fault.
My fault. What am I playing?
And then what else do I get? Why are they in pants? Why are there 5 of them? Who's the yellow one? And I say she's not yellow, she's green. She's wearing a yellow mask.
Why do they talk like that? You
Yeah.
always notice that they talk about the turtles like they are the colors that they're wearing.
But and I did a thing post Armageddon game after Alopex and Raphael broke up. I drew.
Wait, what happened?
Yeah, Raphael and Alopex broke up.
Oilers.
Yeah. But you're all loyal readers and are caught up with issue 140, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't stop. Where we've drawn.
Yeah. So I drew this gnarly argument between them, where Alopex was yelling in his face and spitting. There's little pieces of spit flying, and people were mad about that. So Sophie doesn't post Ninja Turtle stuff on her Instagram, so they came to my Instagram to argue about it. Not even yelling at me, but arguing with them each other on my.
They're just
Instagram,
decided
on my
to use your
comments.
comment
Yeah.
section as their platform.
Oh yeah, it turned into a message board, and I had to be like, all right, guys, let's calm it down on this next one. And
Remember to keep it civil.
yeah. Something to that effect.
So, do you think they're more angry that there's a 5th turtle or that there's pants on the turtles?
My response to that is, I want any teenager around me at all times to be wearing pants. So,
That's fair.
or why are they wearing pants? I say the same reason you're wearing pants.
Cover things up. So, if you guys have questions for me, we can open it up to fan questions. Nobody's got questions about the Ninja Turtles.
I don't know if you guys have seen the College Humor video where they basically treat Donatello like he's a piece of shit, and they make him pitch for his they give him Splinter's basically giving everyone their costumes, and he's like, here's your sword, Leonardo, and here's your nunchucks, and then oh yeah, Donatello fish that stick out of the shit over there, and it's really they're just really treating him like garbage. You guys know where that comes from, or it's people that don't like Donatello or something? He's my second favorite.
I don't know, I guess the bow staff is probably the least intimidating of all the weapons, visually, probably not realistically, because he's got probably the longest reach.
Yeah, I was gonna say, in the games, everyone wants to be Donatello.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah,
you're
sure.
the farthest away from him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's it. I don't know.
Also, it's a fun. It's fun to draw.
Yeah.
Him with the staff.
Yeah.
I think
Maybe they
you can get a lot of cool poses out
You
of
get
it.
him in some real acrobatic,
Yeah.
'cause, Rap is he's got to be pretty aggressive with those things. Leo can be a little more live, and
Yeah.
Mikey is kind of drunken monkey kind of style,
yeah.
but Donnie's acrobatic in a sense, the way that Daredevil was acrobatic when compared to Spider-Man,
Yeah.
So I don't know why somebody would not like.
Maybe
him.
they just
I'm
think
not happy
both
about it, though.
feminine. I don't know. I don't know. That's just some people's opinions. The thing about the Turtles, everyone's got their own personal favorite. Like you said, he's your second favorite. My favorite's probably Mikey, but I don't have a least favorite. That's it. Yeah.
So with the turtles and with all the mutant animals, and there's always different types of animals in as the main characters and stuff, which I think is not unique necessarily to the turtles, but it is different than Superman, where everyone's a human and everything like that. I was wondering is that more exciting for you guys to be drawing like alligators and foxes and everything like that? Like, does that make it more fun? Does it make it harder? I was just curious how that is.
100%.
Yeah.
I think
Both
it's
of
more
those, but
it's yeah. Go ahead.
no, you
It's sometimes hard to draw people, as crazy as that sounds. Like, and to draw them consistently as well. Like, it's. I always found it so much easier to draw like anthropomorphic animals or like monsters or stuff like that. Like, I love that stuff much more.
I think that's, since I was coming off of Star Trek, just drawing real people, like the fact that I felt like I was doing some cartooning again was really cool.
Yeah.
And just like creating even like background mutants and stuff like that. That was fun too.
And I think that's what drew me to the Turtles originally, as opposed to like because I got into like superhero stuff later on, but the Turtles stood out because they were different than they weren't like humanoid characters or super people in costumes or whatever. They were like stuff that I think specifically appealed to kids. That was like really colorful and unique looking.
Yeah, I like drawing animal people. It's awesome. And I like drawing. I always like people always ask me, "What's your sort of favorite thing to draw?" And I like monsters.
Yeah.
Right, but mostly in you get to do some of that too. I mean, there's a lot of that in the Turtles, where you get to lean towards the mantra side of them, and I think there's a lot of similarities in drawing, especially the kind of monsters I like to draw, which is always sort of the monsters with the heart of gold. I always tell people, man thing, swamp thing, the thing, anything with thing, and its name I like to draw. So there's a lot of that when you're doing like Slash or you're doing Bebop and Rocksteady, and even the Turtles themselves. I mean, there's a little bit. I'm using the same kind of skill set in there that I'm drawing, and then I got to draw the issue where the bomb goes off.
Yeah.
And suddenly this whole crowd of people starts mutating into all sorts of different animals. So it's fun, like this big panel, one of the very few times I got to draw one big panel, but it has, of course, a ton of people morphing and mutating into different animals. And I'm just like,
Did you get real monstrous with it?
What's that?
Get real like.
Yeah, I got a little bit, and because they're halfway in between it all, and then I'm just looking up, what's another cool, like, what's a different lizard, or what's a bird, or what's a different, like all these different.
What's a bird?
Like, no, yes, what's a bird? So, just different kinds of animals and weird animals that you can just make people turn into. That one was pretty interesting. A lot of fun to do. Right there.
So I'm actually creating like my own version of TMNT, but I was wondering if you guys had any tips for like visual storytelling, even for working off of somebody else's script.
Draw. Oh yeah.
I'd say watch movies. I guess would be the first thing. Like just I guess just study storytelling,
movies in general.
Like specifically, like the way that you're given information, and in what order and how, and the I don't know, atmosphere is the word, but tone, I guess. Movies are great for storytelling. Other comics are great. I think film. I mean, comics can do a ton of stuff that movies can't. So don't ever like just hold yourself to that. Study all kinds of stuff, I guess.
Yeah, I'd say. I mean, obviously, like draw from life. Even when you're drawing like fantastical stuff, like turtles or mutant animals or whatever, or even like sci-fi buildings or whatever it is. Like if you work from life and use real reference, like it's going to make your world feel more credible. And since you're doing storytelling, you got to believe that your world can actually exist no matter what exists within that world, and as ridiculous as it can be.
Yeah, it's your number one goal is storytelling. So you want to have clarity in storytelling. You want to be able to have the person start, if it's Western comics, you want to be able to start in the upper left-hand corner and have the person's eye lead all the way down to the lower right-hand corner. So you want to just, the first thing to do is to be clear about what's going on.
Keep it simple.
And so then the second thing you want to do is about making it interesting. Make somebody want to look at it. And that's where you come in with atmosphere and tone and drama. Like those things, I would say the first hill you got to conquer is clarity, and then you want to make it like really appealing and have the kind of tone and make it interesting but yeah, if you're going to be a cartoonist, you have to know how to draw everything.
Even the boring stuff,
Especially the boring stuff. Yeah, we were looking at a guy's portfolio, a young guy, 18 years old, who's just drawing beautiful, beautiful stuff. And it was just like, okay, now you got to be able to draw the person that's sitting at a diner having a cup of coffee. You know?
Right.
Like, you got to be able to draw a guy in a suit walking down the street. And like a real suit, not a made-up suit, like you were saying.
I think like the best example, like that, like my go-to example is a lot of people can draw Superman in space fighting Doomsday, but not a lot of people can draw Clark Kent in a grocery store picking out oranges. Huge difference.
And he knows how to get all the best oranges because you see right through
the juiciest ones.
But yeah, so it's always as an artist, I was talking about, you have what's called a morgue file, or you want to have a file full of references, and then you want to try and keep that as organized. And as you go from a script, you're always adding things to whatever's in the script. But you want to have a folder labeled cities, you want to have a folder labeled weapons, and then folders inside of that. And then one folder is swords, and one folder is guns. You want to have a folder of, people sitting, a folder of people. And, you're gonna have to figure out clothing styles, hairstyles. You're gonna have to figure out, you're gonna know your perspective and how perspective works. You're also going to have to keep in mind the 180-degree rule of keeping the people on the left are on the left and the people on the right are on the right. You want to be able to have, you want to leave space for your letterer to put the word balloons somewhere, because.
But most of all, have fun.
But have fun. Yeah, and read the book "Understanding Comics" by Scott McCloud. That's number one. That's the number one book. That's the number one book I think you should read.
I would add Comics and Sequential Storytelling by Will Eisner.
Right.
I don't know if that's but anything by Will Eisner is also great for comic storytelling.
How to draw comics the Marvel way never hurts.
I still have my copy from when I was 9 years old of that. It's the hardcover and the pages.
Oh, yours is hardcover?
Yeah, it was hardcover and the pages are totally out in sections and stuff back in. But that's these are classic books to have as reference material.
Mm-hmm.
So, when working on an IP as large and iconic as something like the Turtles, do you ever deal with like anxieties or worries as an artist?
Never.
That your style will bleed through almost too much for fans that are just used to a certain style or look or feeling.
No, I don't worry about that. I mean, like I said, at first I was following what other people were doing, but as for my line style and stuff like that, like I'd like to throw a lot of ink on the things, and it's not a real clean. It's clear storytelling and all that, but it's not a real polished, smooth line and all that. I'm rough, and I put a lot of ink on it and stuff like that. And I'm all about that. I'm like, you hired me for this. Here it comes.
Yeah, I think the more you do, I think you're a different artist when you start drawing comics as you are, after doing it for a few years. You get, aside from the obvious stuff you learn, you get more comfortable and confident and more yourself, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I think, it's a great place.
I felt like I was trying to fit into a box a lot of times in my early jobs, and now I just kind of like, it's partly because I just want to draw the way I want to draw, and also, that might be the only point I had there.
The point is a good one.
Yeah.
The more you do it.
Well, so here's what I was gonna say: is that it's also it's kind of a necessity. Like you start to like refine your style to fit the deadlines, or whatever's required. You start to knock out the any extra work you can. I guess you start to like figure out like your process and how you're going to be able to do comics like consistently and.
Because I think coming out
Not
of
overwork yourself. Yeah.
when I was coming out of school, I thought I was ready, and I was doing my first book, which was self-published, so that almost didn't count because I took like 6 months to make that book by myself, and it was only like 28 pages. Then I got a job where I had to do 24 pages within a deadline, and I quickly learned like, oh, this is now it's for real, and I had to learned how to get the quality I wanted when it took me 6 months within a month, maybe a little more than a month's time. So, now it's old hat at this point. Now I'm just, just drawing how I draw. And
Yeah, a lot of it's like compromise, I guess.
Yeah.
Like figuring out what's the most important thing on the page, what's the most important panel or element, or you have to. There's like an economy of your time and your work that you have to sort of figure out like where you're gonna put the energy. Where you kind of like coast things.
My wife's looking at me like, you put way too much. My wife's always telling me, just draw fewer lines. Draw fewer lines and you'll get it done faster. I don't know what your problem is. I'm like, I can't stop.
I was trying to treat the page like a sentence. Like, what's the subject of the sentence? So, like, the most important stuff, it's got to be the biggest. And so, like, when we get 8-panel pages with everyone talking, just becomes noise at that point with everything so small. So, like, I try to, I don't know, make everything make sense, like a complete sentence, upper left to bottom right.
Well, and I think that's about all the time we've got. You want to let everybody?
Oh, we got one.
Oh, we got one more. Go
One for the road.
We got just enough time for one more. Go ahead.
So you guys were talking about how you do your script to layouts. It kind of sounds like you guys have a lot of creativity on how it actually ends up looking. Do you guys ever get pushback from like the editors or whoever looking at it saying it's kind of like too gritty or you kind of went too far on that one?
My wife is laughing.
That's why I'm
laughing because she knows of what I think when I'm like in the other room screaming and yelling when I get notes, and I'm like, notes, yay! Guess what, honey? I got notes. I get to change things I've already drawn. But I actually with the turtles, it got to a point where I just got not much of that at all. You kind of get a feel for what you're doing, and I feel like we had a good editor who knew how to sort of shield us from a certain amount of it, because it does have to go. I have your editor at the publisher, but then it has to go to Nickelodeon, and they have to approve things like that. But I think we had a good editor who was able to say like some things yes, but some things no, and just by the end, I feel like I got almost no notes.
Yeah.
As I was working on that book, and then I started working somewhere else, and it started all over again. But
I feel like editors sometimes they want to like test you in a sense when you first start working with them. So they will give you like I always find like I get an abundance of notes at the beginning of a project, or it's like with a new editor that I'm working with, and then it thins out as the project goes on, and that's partly because you start to get more comfortable with each other, and they understand your working style and know what to expect from you, and also because deadlines again, things are getting closer to the end date. They let things go a little bit more. You know what I mean?
So my first issue on the book, I got the script in and I did layouts for the whole book, and they were like, "Hey, well, Nickelodeon hasn't gone over this yet, so there's like these 5 pages. This is a 5-page section. It's probably going to get changed. Just go ahead and do them anyway. If whatever, as far as layouts, whatever. We'll get back to them. I highlighted them. Don't worry about it." So I do these layouts. I turn them in, and I get notes back that night. And it's like, "Hey, we got the updated script. Here you go. Everything but those 5 pages had changed." So I had to redo all my layouts, and I had even the first page 1. They told me wasn't going to change, so I had already inked page 1, so I had to do a complete rework of that.
Man,
that's when it's like,
and it had an amazing cityscape of New York.
Only work from the final script,
right?
Final draft. This is the final
I
draft.
actually didn't have that luxury during my run.
Oh, a lot of times you don't, but you gotta you gotta be like, guys, come on. Yeah,
I tried. I
it's your first
called my
issue,
editor.
yeah.
I called my editor to be like, "Come on." But yeah, that's showbiz.
So we can let you guys get out of here and get back to your tables to pack up and head home.
That's pretty much it.
Where can everybody find you online since they can't go back to your table?
I'm on Instagram, Twitter at Gavin P. Smith. GavinSmithComics.com gets updated about once a year. whenever I remember it exists.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all the regular social media, I'm just Dave Wachter, or Facebook, it's Dave Wachter Art, but you can just look up Dave Wachter and you'll usually find me, Instagram and stuff like that. And I've got a website, but man, I have not updated it since I think the first few months of COVID.
Oh,
So,
wow.
So, I mean, if you want to go to davedrawscomics.com, I think there are at least links to the other things there. That's easier to remember than trying to remember how my name is spelled. Dave Draws Comics is usually easy to remember. Then go to the links page and get off of that site. Or you can look at old stuff, man. I got like 10 years. It was a blog of art, and just like 10
Oh, so
years
you
of
got a
stuff
lot
is
of stuff
there.
on
There's
that
a lot of
site.
stuff on there, yeah. Old stuff.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at csmitharts.
You on there a lot?
Yeah, I haven't posted
I
on
was
either of
gonna
those
say,
in like
not
100
okay.
years. But there is stuff on there, the older stuff.
Can we
If
write
you'd
you a
like
letter? Can we write you a letter?
You guys
Send
need
them a
smoke signals?
telegram.
Fax machines, yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Thank you guys for talking to us.